Sup, guys? So, back with you. As always, it is Thursday, March 13th, championship week coming down the wire here, man. Coming down the stretch as we're going to get some of the best teams involved in their conference championships. Now we have some of the smaller conferences having their championship games. I went 2-2 yesterday with two moneyline underdog wins, but it was still a very slight loss. It was almost a break-even day. I think I lost like $14 or something. I'm not happy about it, but I mean, obviously, if you saw me come back from my evening show yesterday, I was really pissed at Arkansas for blowing a massive lead in that game. They had a huge lead, and they went on a stretch in the crucial moments of the game in the second half where they scored 2 points in, I don't even know, a 10-minute span, blew a 19-point lead, and then Calipari was instructing his players to miss free throws that could have put them up by 2 possessions instead of 1. I don't get it, but go watch my evening video where I complained about it more. So that was a loss. Texas was a nice, easy win for me there in the same tournament there in the SEC. And then I had Georgetown losing a third time to DePaul. I don't get it. I don't know what is going on with this Georgetown team. And they have Ed Cooley there, man. I mean, they got a coach who has a lot of knowledge and a lot of pedigree in that Big East there, in that conference. They just still couldn't get it done. I was pretty surprised, obviously. And then I did get a win on the NBA game. Minnesota T-Wolves was basically no sweat. Easy win. Upset underdog win for the T-Wolves. I didn't even see like which players are in and out of that game, but whatever. I'll take the win. We got a lot to talk about here, man. I don't even have the banners in. I might put them in as I go because this is like college basketball is going crazy, man. Too many games here. I'm going to try to briefly hit them, but the MAC is in full swing now. Akron is playing here. They're the best team in the MAC. They have to play in the quarterfinals based on their conference tournament structure there. This is all in Cleveland, Ohio. So you got to think a lot of these Ohio schools are going to have their fans show up, but more than half of these teams are Ohio schools. So Akron up from 11-12 against Bowling Green. I mean, I would be shocked if Akron doesn't win this game. Whether or not they cover, who knows, but they are the best team in this conference. Ohio and Toledo is actually one of my plays, so let's get that in here. Let's go, man. This is the only non-major conference game that I have. I'm going to lay the points with Ohio in this one. I think I laid 2.5 in this. They're a 3-point favorite right now. I think there were some stray 2.5s out there. I like this one, man. I think Toledo, they're just a really, really bad defensive team, even though they could score. People might look at this and say, oh, Ohio has the worst record, and then look and say, wait a minute, Toledo beat Ohio by 14 the last time they played, which was at Toledo, but Ohio was actually favored on the road at Toledo, so that tells you what the odds makers think. They're telling you that Ohio is the better team such that they were actually the favorite at Toledo. And yeah, Toledo won this game, so now it's kind of skewing the line in the other direction. But Toledo shot 60% from the field in this game. I know they didn't shoot well from 3, but I mean, that's ridiculous. Like, I don't expect that to happen again. I think that's a bit of an outlier. Toledo did also win at Ohio, so this is going to be double revenge here. This is a close 3-point game. Ohio was a 3.5-point favorite in this game. And Toledo again shot above 50% from the field, 44% almost from 3-point range in this game. Ohio won the turnover battle and just still didn't win. Toledo did win on the boards, which is maybe a little bit concerning, but Ohio's the better team here, man. They're the better team. They have the better defense. If you look at KenPom, Toledo's number 12 in luck, so he's telling you they're way overrated. They're good in offense. They're a top 100 offensive efficiency team, but he has them in the bottom 10 teams defensively in the entire country. Terrible defensive team. They're a little bit faster tempo-wise. He's got Ohio as a significantly better team, up 40 ranking spots higher. Ohio also does like to play fast, actually even faster than Toledo, but he has them way down in luck at 311. So he's telling you that Ohio is better than they actually look. And Ohio is obviously the better defensive team, because how could you be worse? I mean, neither of these teams are very good defensively, but Toledo is an absolute disaster defensively. Ohio, you know that in a tournament game like this, in a game that matters, I'm going to lean towards the defense, and that's what I'm doing here. And Ohio's offense isn't even really that much worse, really, than Toledo's. I mean, yeah, Toledo's is definitely better, but I like the defense here. I like Ohio. I think Ohio's going to have the adjustments to make, especially after that loss against Toledo. Both of these teams are going to have their crowds show up for this one. I think the line's a little bit misleading, like I said. So give me Ohio here. Sab, what's up, man? No, I'm not going to bet Butler today. I did lean to them yesterday a little bit. They won, right? I forget who they're even playing. I might talk about that game. I do not have a bet in that game though. So yeah, I like Ohio in that one for double revenge. And people are going to say, oh, revenge is overrated. And yeah, it is. But the reason why revenge is still an angle that works is not really the revenge angle necessarily. Like, yeah, that team's going to be motivated to get that revenge. But obviously in a tournament game like this, both teams are going to be motivated. But what the revenge does is the team that lost those games, like in this case with Ohio, they're actually the better team and they lost both games. What that does is that's going to have that team making adjustments. So they're the team that can fix some things going into the next game, whereas the team that won, you have nothing to fix because what you did worked. So the team that has the adjustments to make actually has the advantage in the next game if the line is impacted by it. And I think if you're looking at a situation where Ohio is a favorite on the road, even though they were only a 3.5-point favorite at home, so this line, you could argue both ways because those two lines in the regular season games were both kind of off from each other. So it's like, well, where does reality lie? I don't know. I think Ken Bum has Ohio winning this game by 3. So whatever the case may be, I do like Ohio in that one. And then we got Miami. Ohio is a 5.5-point favorite at Eastern Michigan. Really don't have much of a read on that one. And Kent State, 9.5-point favorite against Western Michigan. I think Kent State might actually show up focused in this one because they almost lost at Western Michigan to close the season. And I think that was a game where it didn't really matter for Kent State. But the problem with laying points with Kent State, even though, yeah, they should be focused, they're the better team. I don't expect them to lose this game. But Kent State, they're more of a defensive, like, slow-down team. Makes it a little bit more difficult to cover a number like that. In the Atlantic 10, which is in Washington, D.C., some of these teams played yesterday. Some did not. Duquesne and St. Bonaventure both did not play yesterday. They haven't played yet in this tournament, so they both enter cold here. St. Bonaventure up from 1.5 to 2 with juice, so the money coming in on Bonaventure, and these teams split the regular season series, I believe. I think each home team won, if I'm correct about that. I tried to keep it all straight in my mind, man. I don't want to talk about these games too much here, but the line, I think, even though the money's coming in on Bonaventure, I think the tendency of the public is going to be to lay the points with Bonaventure here because they have the way better record. Duquesne has a really ugly sub-500 record, but I think Duquesne may be a little bit underrated. So it wouldn't really surprise me if they play well in this game and actually win against somewhat overrated, I think, Bonaventure team. So we'll see about that. Davidson did play yesterday. They're up against St. Louis. St. Louis up from 1.5 to 3.5. 1.5 with juice to 3.5 with juice. Correct me if I'm wrong. I think Duquesne didn't play yesterday, but these other 3 teams all did. So I don't know. Davidson got the win yesterday. I think a somewhat close game, maybe a bit close for comfort against Richmond, who's probably the worst team in this conference this year. St. Louis is good, though, and I don't really expect them to drop out in this first game, even though Davidson does have a little bit of an advantage because they already got to play. So when a team gets to play, they get the nerves out of the way. They get a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum from that win. They've played a game in the building, so they understand, the sight lines. So their shooting is a little bit better coming into the next game. So it is a little bit of an advantage. But St. Louis is the better team coming in with rest. So I would probably still lean to St. Louis, but again, not a play. Up from 1.5 with juice to 3.5 with juice. Fordham pulled off an upset win yesterday over Rhode Island. This Fordham team is not good, though, even though George Washington, I think, is overrated. They are better than Fordham. Fordham's bad. Fordham, just like Davidson and LaSalle, they all have the advantage of having already played in this building yesterday, but George Washington is the better team. I expect that they should win this game. Up from 7.5 to 7.5 with juice. And then same thing with LaSalle and St. Joe's. St. Joe's up from 11.5 to 12.5 with juice. St. Joe's, actually one of the more underrated teams in this conference. They're good, even though this is a Philadelphia rivalry, actually, where LaSalle is kind of the little brother there. So they will try to step up for this game and be motivated. But I don't really think it's going to happen, even though, again, LaSalle did play yesterday, so they got used to the building, got that game out of the way. St. Joe's, I think, is just too good a team. Whether or not they cover is a different story. but I do expect them to win. Facing St. John's. Well, I'll talk about that game in a minute. I mean, I don't even think I looked at that game, actually. I think St. John's is a huge favorite, though. Let me see. In Charlotte, North Carolina, the ACC continues. Georgia Tech got that win yesterday. I told you I leaned to them yesterday. They got the job done. Close game, and they wound up winning in the end against Virginia. But now they get to play Duke. Duke, hasn't played yet in this tournament because they're the 1 seed. Up from 21 to 22.5 with juice. Obviously, Duke should win this game. Whether or not they cover, again, it's difficult to gauge. I mean, Duke might get out to a lead and just kind of take their foot off the gas here. So it's really difficult to gauge what's going to happen here. They should easily win the game, though. North Carolina at Wake Forest. This is an interesting one where both teams are really fighting to try to get into the tournament at this point. Wake hasn't played yet in this tournament. North Carolina got a win in the ACC tournament yesterday, an easy win for them. So that's good for North Carolina. And then again, they get used to the building. They get some momentum there. Both teams are going to have their fan bases show up because it's in Charlotte, although North Carolina has the crazier, bigger fan base, which might help North Carolina as well. So there are some advantages to North Carolina here. They're trying to make the tournament. Laying points with them is kind of a different story, though. They are definitely the better team, though. Ken Baum probably has North Carolina like 30 or 40 ranking spots higher than Wake. This Wake team is really not that good, so this could be the end of the road for them. I don't really see Wake making the tournament. They are going to show up motivated because if they win this game, they're going to be like discussed, at least, as being on the bubble again. North Carolina, they got to keep winning these games to try to get into the tournament. And now that Ohio State might have dropped out of the tournament, North Carolina, I think, has a better chance than Ohio State does at this point. So they got to keep winning. So I don't want to play this game because both teams are going to be motivated, but I think North Carolina has some slight advantages in this game. Would not surprise me if they won and covered, obviously. That's kind of the way that I lean there. Stanford and Louisville. Stanford got the win last night in an ACC game between Stanford and Cal. The California rivalry playing in the ACC totally makes sense. Cal had played 6 overtimes in like a 3-day span, so they finally ran out of gas, but they played well again. And I think the game actually basically pushed on the number yesterday, and Stanford was able to get the win late by about 5 points. That does mean that Stanford gets used to this venue, though, so they have a little bit of an advantage just having played yesterday. But Louisville is way better than Stanford, and they're one of the better teams in the conference, obviously. Louisville up from 9.5 to 10. One of those situations where I think having the advantage of having played already isn't really necessarily going to be that much of an advantage and enough to get you over the hump against a team that's significantly better than you are, which is the case with Louisville. Louisville obviously should win. Again, I mean, do I lean to them to cover? I don't know. Probably not, really, but I'm going to not play the game, obviously. And then SMU and Clemson. Clemson, also one of the top teams in this conference. They get a tougher matchup than Louisville does, though. SMU, I mean, they're fighting to still try to make the tournament. They're considered a bubble team right now. SMU got the win yesterday against Syracuse, an easy win, so that's good for SMU because they're new to this conference. They get that game out of the way, so now they're used to playing in this building. Clemson is not. Clemson does like to play a slow style, too, so they're up from 4 to 6. But if they slow this game down, it might make it a little bit more difficult for them to cover by margin, and SMU needs the game more. I mean, Clemson, do they really care about, we're going to be like a 5 seed versus a 4 seed or whatever? Probably not. SMU trying to get into the tournament at all, having a game under their belt, I would lean to taking the points with SMU here. That's probably the strongest lean that I have in the ACC. Not a play, though. Butler won yesterday against, who did they beat? I don't even remember. Providence, I think. Butler got the win yesterday. I leaned to them yesterday because I thought Providence kind of was the more, like, recognized team name-wise. I think people are just overlooking Butler a little bit. It's starting to play better, but they're playing at Madison Square Garden here against St. John's. This Big East tournament is at Madison Square, so you know the St. John's crowd is going to show up here. They're up from 12.5 to 12.5 with juice here. St. John's is a weird team, man. They play fast, but they're better defensively than offensively. Their offensive efficiency isn't good. Like, they don't score on that high percentage of their possessions, but they get a ton of possessions because I believe they just play frenetically and they just turn you over a lot. And they're really good on defense. Yeah, obviously, I think St. John's is going to win this game. Butler, I mean, they're not a bubble team or anything like that. They're running into a better team, even though Butler did get that game out of the way yesterday to familiarize themselves with the venue. Do you really think St. John's needs to familiarize themselves with basically their second home venue here? No. So the fact that St. John's hasn't played yet in this tournament, I don't think it matters. I think it matters a lot of any of these teams because they play in this venue all the time. It's basically their secondary home venue. So, yeah, I expect St. John's to win this game. Do I expect them to cover? I don't know. I would probably still lean that way, but that's not a play for me. So that's what I think about that game. Saab, and then we have, or Sab, I don't know how you pronounce your name. Marquette down from a 3-point favorite to a 2-point favorite against Xavier. Xavier, I believe they played yesterday, right, and got a win, so they have one win out of the way already in this tournament. They're fighting to get into the tournament, man. So Xavier, they're a bubble team, got to keep winning. This would be a good win over a ranked Marquette team. Marquette definitely kind of struggling down the stretch here, man. Do I lean with taking the points with Xavier? Yeah, I probably do because you're getting points with a team that's probably more motivated here. Again, Marquette, they're going to be in the tournament. I mean, I know they're faltering. They'd probably like to get a win here, but, I mean, they're used to playing in the tournament, obviously, and they got a tournament experience coach here with Shaka Smart, but I don't know, man. Xavier, I mean, the motivation might put them over the hump. Problem I have with this is I actually think this line is a bit short. I think Ken Baum has Marquette winning this game by about 4, so I think the motivation is really kind of factoring into this line a little bit. And maybe it should, but I just don't know that you're getting that much value with Xavier, so I considered the Xavier side here. I do lean that way, but I'll just stay off of it. Marquette, again, they do have the experience in this tournament at least, and they kind of probably want to win as well just because they've played pretty poorly the last few games. So it might be a chance for them to kind of right the ship a little bit. But again, Xavier, it would be really, really helpful for them to get this win because they're right there, potentially making the tournament here, coming from out of nowhere. Xavier really, really hot right now. But the problem with that is that coming into a tournament, if you're hot, a lot of times that like little break there can kind of halt your momentum, but I'm pretty sure Xavier did play yesterday, so I think that momentum is probably not an issue for them because they have new momentum with that win yesterday, I believe, right? You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I do think Xavier played yesterday. DePaul played yesterday, as we know, because they beat me. Bullshit. And now Creighton is their opponent up from 11.5 to 12. Needless to say, I don't think DePaul is going to win another game in this tournament here. I expect Creighton to win this game. I mean, they're the significantly better team. Covering, obviously, is a different story because the spread is huge and it's a great equalizer. I don't really have any sort of lean on this game as far as the side. So staying away from that. And then Villanova against Connecticut. Connecticut up from 4.5 to 5.5. I mean, UConn's going to be in the tournament. So I think Villanova actually is the way that I would lean in this game just because they need the game more. Villanova won yesterday, so they get a game out of the way under their belt in the tournament here. They beat Seton Hall yesterday, so that was a decent win for Villanova. Just the fact that they just won as a favorite, basically, that kind of just gives you enough confidence moving forward and gets you adjusted to the venue. So that's pretty good for Villanova. I mean, UConn, they're going to get a huge amount of fan support, though, in Madison Square Garden. They get a lot of fans showing up for them here because it's pretty close to their home. UConn up from 4.5 to 6 here with juice, but again, UConn's definitely going to make the tournament. Villanova is actually a bubble team here, and if they were able to win this game, that would be pretty decent for their resume. So I do think Villanova is the more motivated of these two teams here, man. In a situation like this, and they're getting points, already adjusted to the venue, and both of these teams play really, really slow, which makes it more difficult for the favorite to cover here. It looks like we have 50% of tickets, 62% of the cash coming in on Nova as the percentages start coming in here. So we'll see what happens there. Indiana and Oregon, we got, this is a play for me. I'm going to play Indiana plus the points here, +2, I believe. Down from 3 to 2 here with reduced juice, so it is going down further. This is a quick turnaround revenge spot, even though, like I said, revenge, yes, it's overrated, but we can call it more of a readjustment spot, let's say here. By the way, I do think St. John's is overranked at 6th in the country. I do not think they're the 6th best team in the country, but I do think they are quite good. Indiana, I like the spot, man. Oregon, they're back in the rankings. Oregon finished the season really hot with 6 wins in a row. I think 7 wins in a row. Really only a couple of really impressive wins in there, though. At Wisconsin was the most impressive, and then beating Indiana, pretty decent win. But remember, Indiana, that was Indiana having to go to the Pacific Coast, so you know they're not familiar with a trip like that. They're not familiar with the venue. Really not an easy spot for these Big Ten teams to have to go out to the Pacific Coast for the first time. So that wasn't easy, but now it's going to be Oregon that's not in the familiar venue because they have to turn around and go into Indianapolis, which is where this game is. They're not used to playing in the Big Ten tournament, and if the game's in Indiana, you know that the University of Indiana is going to have a huge amount of fan support coming into this game, and it could be their last game with Woodson, as he said he's going to resign, which we saw what happened with Long Beach State, man, when they had fired their coach last year. It propelled them through the entire conference tournament, and they got into the tournament. So you could see a similar thing here with Indiana playing extra hard because they know that Woodson is leaving, and if they actually like the guy, maybe I had that wrong. Maybe they actually do. I mean, he doesn't seem like a dick or anything. He just seemed to me like he was totally out of it and like not focused at all. So maybe Indiana is starting to turn it around. Now, the fact that Indiana lost at Oregon, I'm not going to put that much stock into that because it was a bad spot for Indiana having to go out there. And Indiana gets to adjust whatever went wrong in that game. And Oregon being ranked, I think they're a little bit overrated, man. Ken Pom does not have Indiana that much further down than Oregon. He's got Oregon 32nd and Indiana 45th. Both teams pretty balanced, offense and defense. I mean, Indiana's a little bit more defense-focused than Oregon is, although Oregon's more balanced and the better team, but not by that much. Both teams play similarly as far as both of them are mid-tempo, and as far as the luck index, Oregon's 24th in luck, even though Indiana at 102nd, that's not that great, but Oregon 24th. Ken Pom telling you, Oregon, they're overperforming a little bit here, man. And in a spot like this, I think the spot favors Indiana, and on top of all that, Indiana needs to get these wins to try to get into the tournament, man. They're a bubble team fighting to get it in. Oregon is not. I mean, do you really think Oregon cares that much about being a 6 seed versus a 5 seed, whatever the case may be? I don't really think so. And this game matters way more to Indiana. Give me Indiana. I mean, Oregon, yeah, I mean, sure, it would be nice to get a win for the first time in the Big Ten tournament, but Indiana's also going to want to hold serve against a newcomer here. Be like, you're coming into our tournament. Like, who the hell are you? Give me Indiana plus the points, man. And Indiana, they finished the season. They did get a win over Ohio State, so I think they just kind of they have just a decent amount of momentum. But that loss to Oregon, I think, is actually really, really helpful to them in this game because it broke up their momentum, so they're not coming into this game hot. Whereas Oregon coming into the game hot and then having to travel, like I said, if you finish the season really hot and then you have like 3-4 days off and then you have to travel to this unfamiliar place, that can really disrupt your momentum. Whereas Indiana, I'd be a little bit worried that their momentum would be a little bit disrupted here, but the fact that it already got disrupted by that loss to Oregon, I think that helps them. So I don't think they're in a bad spot here. And they're staying in the state of Indiana because they finished their season at home. So their travel spot is a lot better as well. So Indiana is the play there in that game. Let's keep going. Northwestern and Wisconsin. Wisconsin up from 8-8 with juice. Northwestern played yesterday and got the win, which I expected against. I thought Northwestern was a little bit undervalued, man, even though they're without a couple of their best players, including Barnheiser, who is their best player. But they're playing decent basketball right now. They got a win as a favorite last night over, who did they beat? Minnesota, I think. Yeah, so I thought Northwestern would get that one done. Northwestern maybe a little bit better than their record would indicate, but now they're running into Wisconsin, who is a legitimate contender to win this Big Ten tournament here and probably wants to do that. They were able to make it to the final last year, so they do have some experience in making runs in this tournament, although sometimes they do drop out early as well. But Wisconsin, I just think they're better than Northwestern. Northwestern actually gave them a scare at Wisconsin during the regular season, even though Wisconsin wound up winning that game, I think, by double digits. Or maybe it was at Northwestern. I forget, but Northwestern was winning like half of that game. So even though Wisconsin did turn that around and win, I don't think Wisconsin is going to be like, they're not going to overlook Northwestern, I don't think, because they got a little bit of a scare there. So maybe a slight lean to Wisconsin, but I'm not going to play that game. Iowa also has the advantage of having played yesterday. So I guess 3 of these teams did play yesterday in this venue. Iowa got the upset win over Ohio State. Really detrimental to Ohio State's chances. I think they're going to be out, man. Very, very sad for Ohio State. Illinois up from 10 to 10.5 here. 50% of tickets, 87% of the cash coming in on Iowa. So the money is coming in on Iowa. But I think this might be the end of the road for Iowa. I mean, yeah, they really, really fought to get into this tournament. They got the win last night, but Illinois is a way better team, and both of these teams play fast. I think Illinois is actually a little bit underrated now, and Illinois could score with Iowa, but they also are way better defensively, and they play fast like Iowa, so they're basically just Iowa, but way better. So I don't really see any pacing mismatch here or anything like that. Illinois is just the better team and does what Iowa does, but does it better with defense on top of it. So I prefer the Illinois side here, even though it looks like the cash percentage is on Iowa, and Iowa did get that game out of the way yesterday. I don't like it. Illinois is fairly legit, and I think they're underrated because of that bad swoon that they had during the season with those injuries and team illness and whatever. But I think they're back closer to full strength here. Illinois, I think, won this tournament last year. So, yeah, teams are going to be gunning for them, but it also means they have kind of that pedigree of doing pretty well recently in this tournament. They do take it seriously. USC and Purdue. USC, obviously, a newcomer to this thing. They got the win last night against Rutgers, where I mentioned I leaned Rutgers in the morning, but the money all started coming in on USC. Rutgers wound up being public, and the line flipped towards USC. So in the middle of the day, I was like, I'm wrong about this. I like USC. So again, take some of my early reads with a grain of salt here. Purdue up from 7.5 to 9.5. 70% of the cash coming in on them. 50% of tickets evenly split. So the money is coming in on Purdue. And again, Purdue, they're the way better team. USC is not going to be familiar with this venue that much, even though they did get that game out of the way last night. So at least there is that. They got that one game out of the way, but they're running into a Purdue team that is the better team here, man. And the money is coming in on them. So I don't really have a reason to disagree with Purdue there. Now let's move to the Big 12, where I do have a play here on a favorite. Actually, that's going to be my second favorite in these 3 games. Let me see. And you know what it's going to be if you see me here. Iowa State -3 is the play here. I think it's -3 is what I got. They're up from 3 to 3.5 here now, though. BYU, 75% of tickets, 78% of the cash. I don't know where if the cash percentage is really going to come out landing on the BYU side. It seems like not, because the line seems to be moving in Iowa State's direction. I would try to get on it, and I like the Iowa State side, man. I actually think the line might be a little bit short. I think the public is going to be on BYU. BYU, the hype is definitely there on BYU. They are absolutely going to be in the tournament now. They're the 17th ranked team in the country now. Iowa State, 12th. Iowa State, I think, is a little bit undervalued now. BYU, a little bit overvalued. As you see here, Ken Bum has Iowa State 9th, BYU 24th. He's got Iowa State as the way better defense, 6th in the country. He has them offensively decent, not as good as BYU, but Iowa State nearly as good offensively, I think we could say, and defensively just way better than BYU. Iowa State, both teams play, BYU mid-tempo, Iowa State a little bit faster, I guess, but BYU also higher in luck index at 111th, Iowa State down to 277th. So Kemp, I'm telling you, BYU is a little bit overrated. Iowa State maybe a little bit underrated right now. I agree with all that. Iowa State does really well in this tournament, too, and they've won it 5 of the last 11 years, which is crazy. Very crazy statistic there. They take this tournament very seriously with Otzenberger. Is that his name? I keep forgetting his name. Their coach there. And I think they're going to want this even more because this is a quick revenge spot for Iowa State. They just lost at home to BYU, man. Very unexpected loss there in 2 overtimes. BYU got it done. Iowa State was an 8.5-point favorite in that game, and now they're only laying 3. That 8.5 tells you that Iowa State should probably be about, I don't know, man, 4.5, even though, yeah, they get a lot for home court. But still, I think 3 a little bit short based on that. And they're going to be the team that has the adjustments to make, man. With BYU having beaten them in this game, it's going to be Iowa State that has the adjustments to make here, man. Iowa State had a pretty poor shooting game. I know BYU absolutely dominated them on the boards, which is very concerning. And that BYU absolutely was horrific in the turnover department and still somehow won this game. Yeah, that concerns me a little bit, but I think this is Iowa State's adjustment game, man. I still think they're the better team. I mean, all the analytics and the odds makers tell you they are. They're more used to playing in this tournament than BYU is. BYU a little bit newer to the conference. Iowa State, sure, they'll have a target on their back because they keep winning this conference, but they keep winning it because they take this thing seriously. Again, they are going to have revenge on their mind here as well, or they're going to be the team that has the adjustments to make here. They did get a couple of wins to finish the season, which I think that helps because they didn't really finish the season that hot or anything. BYU finished it hotter than basically any team, similar to Oregon. They won like 7 straight games to finish the season, so I think that's actually bad as well. You have all this time off, and then you have to travel. I don't like it at all. Iowa State is starting to really look like an anti-public favorite in this one. I like what I'm seeing. Lay the points with Iowa State. Colorado has pulled off 2 wins in this tournament already, so now they're playing a 3rd game in 3 days. I think this is where it ends for Colorado, needless to say. I mean, they pulled off the upset over West Virginia, so now West Virginia, they're going to be sweating as far as the tournament is concerned. I think they'll probably still get in. Their defense is at least quite good, but Colorado pulling off 2 wins, actually both as underdogs too. But now they run into Houston, who's the best team in this conference, up from 17 to 17.5 with juice. 75% of tickets, 95% of the cash coming in on Colorado, even though it looks like the line's up on Houston. I expect it to end for Colorado, man, even though they're now adjusted to this venue and whatever. Houston is just the way better team. I mean, as far as covering the spread, though, that's kind of a different story because Houston plays really, really slow. So it makes it really difficult for them to cover huge, huge numbers like this. So I don't know that they're really going to do that, but they should obviously get the win here. I think that's the end of the road for Colorado. Baylor got the nice win yesterday against Kansas State. Baylor as a favorite. Pretty much is going to ensure that Baylor, no matter what they do now, I think Baylor is going to be in the tournament. I think they're good. So maybe they can kind of relax a little bit. Texas Tech up from 4 to 6 with juice. Texas Tech is a seriously good team, man. Baylor does like to play slow, which does help covering as an underdog, but Texas Tech, Ken Bum has them as a top 10 team, man. Has them pretty balanced. They're actually a very, very good team, and nobody's really talking about them. So I kind of like Texas Tech in the spot, even though Baylor did get that game out of the way yesterday, got the win. So that's good for them to like adjust to this venue. But I think that as far as their need is concerned, it's not quite there anymore. I think they're good for the tournament. And Texas Tech is definitely the better team. And Baylor, even though they play slow, their problem is actually their defense. So Texas Tech is the way better team defensively. Baylor really has issues on the defensive side of things. And then we got Kansas and Arizona. There's some heavy movement in Arizona, flipping the favorite from a 1-point dog to a 2.5-point favorite with juice. 75% of tickets, 93% of the cash coming in on Arizona. Arizona lost to Kansas 2 games ago. I think they lost at Kansas, so it is a quick revenge spot for Arizona, or a quick adjustment spot where Arizona can maybe adjust here. Kansas won yesterday, though, and they got a scare yesterday. They barely beat UCF. The game went into overtime, so maybe that'll tire out Kansas a little bit, but still, I think the fact that Kansas almost lost is a big favorite, and in the same game got themselves like adjusted to this venue, and it's in Kansas City, Missouri, so you know the crowd is going to be there. Arizona, not familiar with playing in this tournament or venue because they're new to the Big 12, so that's kind of an issue. So I don't really agree with this line move, to be honest, man, even though, yeah, it is a game where Arizona might be able to adjust to what caused them to lose to Kansas before. I don't really see it, though, man. I just don't see it. I kind of lean to Kansas here just because of the way the tournament has been structured so far. I mean, Kansas, you're at least getting good defense out of them, getting points, even though Arizona is actually good defensively as well. I think Kansas is the better of the 2 defenses, though. Arizona's decent on both sides. They're the better scoring team than Kansas, but Kansas is the better defense, getting points there as well. As much as I hate to say it, I might slightly lean to Kansas in that one. And buck what I'm seeing in the market. American Athletics, South Florida, Wichita State. Wichita State down from 4.5 to 3.5, so the money looks like it's coming in on South Florida. Again, I don't really know what to do with these games. I don't know how to handicap the American Athletic right now, man. I mean, these teams are just like, I don't find really many angles with these teams. Florida Atlantic up from 8 to 10.5 with juice against Charlotte. Charlotte is definitely a really bad team. All these games were in Fort Worth, Texas, where the opening rounds were at Denton at North Texas. which is weird, but now we're in Fort Worth, Texas, which is still pretty close to where Denton is. I don't know. I don't really get why that's where this is, but whatever. Tulsa and Temple. Temple down from 5-3 now. I would kind of lean to Tulsa here because I think Temple did just win at Tulsa close to the end of the season, so it's a little bit of a readjustment spot for Tulsa. And I think people look at this and think Temple, based on their records and whatever, Temple's got to be the better team. So it looks kind of easy to take Temple in this game. I don't really agree with it. I agree with the line, moving that one, grabbing the points with Tulsa, and then UTSA and East Carolina. East Carolina from 2 to 3.5 with reduced juice. Some money coming in East Carolina. Both of those teams are pretty bad. I think East Carolina is actually a little bit overrated, but UTSA sucks. So, again, I don't know what I would want to do with any of those games. I don't know if any of these teams have even played yet. I think Charlotte maybe is the only team that's played so far in this tournament. I don't know. So, but they're not even adjusted to this venue, though, because it's different than whatever venue was where they played before. I think UTSA also maybe play. I don't even know. I'm not paying that much attention to that conference. In the SEC, Arkansas and Ole Miss. Ole Miss up from 3 to 4 with juice here. 75% of tickets, 85% of the cash coming in on Ole Miss. Arkansas getting that win yesterday. Maybe they feel like they're now good as far as making the tournament, but I know if they beat Ole Miss, I think it's guaranteed they're going to be in the tournament. I think they're probably in anyway, though. And Ole Miss is a pretty dangerous team, man. I think they're kind of flying under the radar right now. Arkansas does have a little bit of an advantage because they played yesterday. All these games were in Nashville, Tennessee. They played yesterday, got that game out of the way. So a little bit of an advantage to Arkansas, and the final score wasn't indicative of how dominant Arkansas was. Don't remind me losing that play by a half point there with Arkansas. But Ole Miss is one of those teams that could make a run in this tournament because I think they're being undervalued right now. They're a good, balanced team, well-coached team. Both of these coaches are good, though. So, again, we'll see what happens. Despite what Calipari did yesterday, he is still a good coach. 75% of tickets, 85% of the cash coming in at Ole Miss, though. So the money is coming in on Ole Miss. We will see. Texas and Texas A&M is my last play here in college basketball, and that is that I'm going to go right back to the well and grab Texas again, and hopefully they nourish me again after an easy win yesterday. Texas still they need more, I think, to get into the tournament, man. That win yesterday, good win over Vandy, but it's not going to be enough. They beat Vandy in Nashville, by the way, which is good. But now Texas, they got a game out of the way, a little bit of confidence, a little bit of momentum now moving forward. They got to be playing with a need to win here, man. Which I think all of that is good. Texas A&M is up from 6 to 6 with heavier juice, but 62% of tickets, 92% of the cash coming in on Texas. Money coming in on the Texas side again. I'm agreeing with that. I think Texas having that game out of the way does help them. Texas A&M. The other problem with laying points with Texas A&M is that they're not very good offensively. They play slow. They're good on defense, but that's more of a recipe that helps you cover as an underdog than it is to cover as a fairly large favorite. So I don't like that either. Their offense could definitely go cold at times, even though Texas sometimes does too. But Texas, the need is there for them, man. They're getting points. Texas A&M, they're playing basically. They're going to be a 2 or a 3 seed in the tournament. I don't think that matters as much as getting into the tournament at all. So I think the motivating factor is there for Texas. So give me Texas, man. And I think Texas also lost to Texas A&M during the regular season, so maybe a little bit of an adjustment there for Texas as well. Mississippi State and Missouri. Missouri is a 3.5-point favorite. Mississippi State, though, I believe they finished the season pretty bad, though, didn't they? Let me see. I forget. I had some thoughts on this game, and I don't remember what they were. I liked the idea of taking the points of Mississippi State, though. Let me see. Or no, they finished the season finally getting a win against LSU. Or no, wait, they beat LSU in this tournament. What am I saying? That was yesterday, right? Yeah, so Ole Miss has a game out of the way in the tournament. Yeah, that's what I like. So they got an easy win yesterday in the tournament, so they're used to the venue. Missouri is not yet used to the venue. And Ole Miss got blasted, or Mississippi State, excuse me. Sorry, fans. Got blasted at home by Missouri. So I actually think that there's that little bit of an adjustment game there, too, because Missouri blew Mississippi State out at Mississippi State. So that's going to give Mississippi State a little bit of an edge as far as that they can adjust here as well. So I lean to taking the points with Mississippi State there. Oklahoma, I believe they won yesterday too against Georgia. Pretty good win. Oklahoma kind of playing themselves into the tournament now. I don't know how safe they feel, though. They still might need to play here, but Kentucky up from 5 to 6.5 with juice. Oklahoma's new to this tournament, although so is Texas. But Texas and Oklahoma both did get those games out of the way yesterday, and I played Texas yesterday anyway. I don't think playing in the SEC from the Big 12 in Nashville is really that much of a huge move, so whatever. The money is coming in Kentucky here, though, so I don't know, though, because I don't know if Oklahoma feels like they're safe as far as getting to the tournament is concerned. Kentucky is the better team, though. They're kind of like a better Oklahoma. Like, both these teams play fast. They both struggle defensively, and they both score. Kentucky's just better at it. So the matchup really isn't that great for Oklahoma because they can't really, like, change the pace on Kentucky. Like, Kentucky's going to do what they want to do. They just do it better. So that's what's going on there, even though Kentucky is missing some players. They're missing Jackson Robinson for the rest of the season and whatever. We got in the Mountain West, I don't know what to say about this. San Jose State already got that win yesterday to get that game out of the way under their belts. This is in Las Vegas. But New Mexico up from 13.5 to 14.5. So, I mean, New Mexico, obviously the better team here, should get the job done. Boise and San Diego State is the biggest game here. I mean, these teams both are bubble teams. Boise State's kind of on the better side of the bubble here San Diego State's kind of on the better side of the bubble here, and they have more name recognition. There's 67% of the tickets on San Diego State, but 58% of the cash coming in Boise, and the market is moving towards Boise, up from 1.5 to 2 with juice. So the money is coming in on Boise. I kind of agree with it because the need is heavier for Boise, but both these teams really need to win this game, man. San Diego State, I believe, won both regular season matchups, though, and I looked, and it didn't really look that misleading to me. So, and this line, I think, looks a little bit out of whack to me as well as far as that's concerned. I think San Diego State is probably still the better team, so it's kind of surprising that Boise is actually the favorite in this one. So I don't necessarily agree with the market read on that one. Like, at least not enough to play this game for sure. I mean, maybe I agree with it if you put a gun to my head and I had to pick. I would probably go with the market, but still, I don't like it, and I don't think there's really that much value there in that number. Colorado State up from 4 to 5.5 against Nevada. Colorado State could potentially win this tournament, man. Nevada did get a game out of the way yesterday, though, with an easy win against Fresno. I think one of the bad teams playing in their home state, at least, but Colorado State has risen up, man, and played really well in the second half of the season. They've kind of played themselves into the tournament discussion here, and they kind of need to keep winning for that reason. They're the better team, I think, but this line is a little bit too high for my liking. If you look at how they were lined in the regular season games, this line, it looks like there's no real value laying the points to Colorado State. So that is the problem there. UNLV playing in their home arena, but now they get Utah State. UNLV got that win yesterday for a little bit of momentum against Air Force, and Air Force was hanging around for a while in that game. So UNLV maybe got a little bit of a scare in that game as well for a while, but Utah State is the better team, up from 6.5 to 7 with juice. I expect Utah State to get the job done here. But it is at UNLV's home arena, and UNLV got that game out of the way yesterday. So they do have some advantages coming into that one. And the MAC Iona has flipped from a plus 1.5 point dog to a pick 'em against Manhattan. Iona is the better team, so I probably agree with that. I don't really have much else to say there. Mount St. Mary's and Marist. Marist has flipped from 1 point dog to a 1.5 point favorite. Interesting line is Marist. You'd think that they're enough of the better team, and it looks really easy to play Marist in this game. So that kind of had me leaning to Mount St. Mary's initially, but then I looked, and Mount St. Mary's beat Marist to close the season. So I think Marist has a little bit of a revenge / like adjustment to do, like adjustment on their mind here. So that's a little bit of an advantage to Marist. So we'll see. These games are in Atlantic City. And then in Huntsville, the Conference USA continues. Kennesaw State, a pick 'em against New Mexico State. Really don't have much of a read on this one at all. And La Tech against Middle Tennessee. Middle Tennessee up from 1 to 1.5 with juice. Although I think Louisiana Tech won both regular season matchups, and I looked, and I'm not sure that it was misleading, man. Even though this is now double revenge for Middle Tennessee, I think they might have a matchup problem here because Louisiana Tech is a slower team, and they dominated the rebound department in those games. So Louisiana Tech, the better rebounding team. So I don't know that I would agree with that line move on Middle Tennessee. And then in the WAC, this continues. That's WAC. Seattle up from 5 to 5.5. I keep telling you Seattle's better than they look. They have a really, really ugly looking record. So I think the public's going to have a tendency to think there's value in grabbing Abilene Christian, getting points, being the team with the better record. But odds makers are telling you Seattle's the better team. So I probably lean that way. And then Tarleton and Cal Baptist. Cal Baptist up from 6.5 to 6.5 with juice. I do think they're the better team as well. That Tarleton State just kind of continues to overperform the last couple of years. And then in the Big West in Henderson, Nevada, UC Santa Barbara got a game out of the way yesterday, so they won yesterday. Got adjusted to the venue. Northridge is up from 2 to 3.5, though, so money coming into Northridge, even though Santa Barbara does at least have the advantage of having played in the tournament already. Cal Poly also has that same advantage, but the money's coming in on Riverside, up from 3 to 4.5 with juice. I don't know what I think about these games, really, to be honest, other than the fact that I'm just going to pass. And then we have the SWAC and the MEAC. Not a whole lot to talk about there. I don't really talk about those conferences, so not really anything to say about those. Delaware State looks like they have some money coming in. They look like a better market read than most of these other games here to me, but we will see. And then I will congratulate McNeese for winning the Southland as they should have. I mean, they dominated that conference 2 years in a row now with Will Wade there. Some good coaching there. Things got a little bit chippy, but they were able to grind and extend their lead late to win that game. They will probably be around a 12 seed in the tournament, I would guess. They're pretty good. American, congratulations to them for winning the Patriot. I have them way down, like, 16th seed play-in game in Dayton. They'll probably be on the 16 line somewhere, but we will see. Congratulations to Montana for winning the Big Sky late at night. They were able to beat Northern Colorado, so they, I believe, are in. Montana State, probably about a 15 seed, though. Or, excuse me, Montana. Again, I apologize to everybody. Montana, not Montana State. And then we got, who else won yesterday as far as the conference winners? Was that it? I just congratulate them all, man. I let you know who's in the tournament. I think that was it, but if I forgot anybody, I'll get to it today. But I think that was it yesterday. Yeah, I believe so. All right. And Southern, the best team in the SWAC, got upset, by the way, so they're not going to be in it. Let's talk about some hockey. Hopefully I can get this done real quick here because I got to get the hell out of here. I do have one hockey play. Florida's at Toronto. I mean, Florida just lost to Boston. A little bit of an ugly loss, I guess I would say, going to Toronto. And Toronto won at Utah, but now they're returning home from a road trip. So maybe the spot's a little bit better for Florida there to bounce back. They're up from -102 to -117, 58% of tickets, 59% of the cash. So slight lean on Florida. Boston coming off two big wins against Tampa and Florida there, man. And even though they need to keep winning to stay in the playoff picture, Ottawa's fighting with them to stay in the playoff hunt as well. Boston coming off a big emotional game against Florida. I think they're kind of in a letdown spot. I would lay it with Ottawa if I was going to play this game, although they're down from -190 to -178. 81% of tickets, only 75% of the cash. So the market read is against me there. Kind of surprising. The one game I'm actually going to play, and I found a good number on this, is the St. Louis Blues. I think I got them at -115, something like that. You can try to find the best number on this. The money's coming in on St. Louis, and I agree with this one. St. Louis has flipped from a 102 dog to a -114 favorite. 57% of tickets, 91% of the cash coming in on St. Louis. I agree with the Blues. I mean, all the market indicators are on St. Louis. The money's come in on them. Flip them to the favorite. The cash percentage is on them. They have the rest advantage here, man. They've been off for a couple of days, and they lost a tough game in overtime to the Kings. The Kings finally got like double revenge against them there. But the fact they've had multiple days off, I think is going to help. Even though they're kind of returning back to the area here, I think having multiple days off like this and having rest after this, they're going to show up for this next game. St. Louis is also playing for a playoff spot right now, man, so they can't really overlook any team. In Pittsburgh, talk about being off of big games. Not only did they just beat Minnesota, but they just beat Vegas. Huge win for Pittsburgh in overtime. I mean, that was 2 days ago. And now they're just kind of staying at home, basking in it. And they got the Devils up next. Pittsburgh not going anywhere this year. Probably consider those to be bigger games. So I think it's a much better spot for St. Louis for those reasons. That's what I'll do. Vegas against Columbus. I mean, Vegas coming off that ugly loss to Pittsburgh, obviously. Columbus coming off loss to New Jersey and returning home from a road trip. So it is kind of a negative spot there for Columbus. I think it's a bit more of a positive spot for Vegas. So that's the way I lean. They're up for minus 160 and minus 166, but 90% of the tickets and only 66% or 63% of the cash. So they look public with less of the cash on them. So I don't really want to do that and lay that price on the road, but that's the way I would lean. Osbaker's still telling you Columbus is way overrated. Edmonton and New Jersey. Edmonton lost to Buffalo. I mean, that's an ugly loss for Edmonton. Looks like it's a bounce-back spot for them here. New Jersey coming off a big win over the Columbus Blue Jackets. But New Jersey's pretty safe in their playoff spot at this point. So I like Edmonton here. They're up for minus 130, minus 146. 80% of tickets, 98% of the cash coming in on them. Lean to Edmonton. Rangers in Minnesota, another big game here. Rangers on a bad 4-game skid, playing to try to get into the playoffs. You know they're going to be focused, even though they're coming off a really tough game against Winnipeg. They can't afford to lose this many games, man, because they need to try to get into the playoffs here. Minnesota, they're a wild card team, but they're like the most secure wild card team. They have a big 7-point edge right now, and they're coming off a big win over Colorado. So I lean to the Rangers. They're up for minus 106 to minus 111. Oddsmakers telling you Rangers are enough the better team over Minnesota. They're laying a price on the road. I keep telling you Minnesota's overrated, man, even though they have the better record. Looks too easy to take them as an underdog, in my opinion, even though 87% of the of the tickets on the Rangers, so they are public, I guess, and 68% of the cash. Washington and LA, another pretty big game. Washington staying in the LA area. Easy win over Anaheim in their last game. I don't think any of these teams played yesterday, by the way. So no back-to-backs here today. And LA off of a win over the Islanders, so just kind of continuing their momentum and staying at home. Tough game to read. LA is up from minus 110 to minus 129. Washington looking like they're probably going to be a public underdog. 75% of tickets, although 85% of the cash right now. But the line has moved significantly on the Kings, so it looks like the money is coming in on the Kings. So I probably lean that way. And then we do have NBA here. Not a whole lot going on. I mean, the Lakers are at Milwaukee. Milwaukee's laying 6.5, though, against this LeBron-less Lakers team. And the Lakers should kind of be in bounce-back mode after a loss. I believe they lost to Brooklyn. Pretty bad loss. I was on Brooklyn in that game, I think, because Lakers are coming off that big get-up game against the Celtics where they lost. Bucks up from 5.5 to 6.5 with juice, though. 60% of tickets, 77% of the cash coming in on the Bucks. It's not like the Bucks are going to overlook the Lakers, man. Bucks coming off a bunch of losses in a row, too. But they, I believe, played yesterday, and they're on a back-to-back. So I don't really love the Bucks in that spot either. They played 2 days ago, so they do have 1 day off. So that's a little bit better, I guess. So the market read kind of makes sense there. Where I'm going to go, though, is actually going against the market read. And I'm on Chicago, minus 2.5. I don't understand the market read in this game. Yeah, I really do not understand it at all, man. I'm going to take the Bulls. They're down from 3.5 to 2. 69% of the cash coming in on the Nets and 68% of the tickets on the Bulls. So the Bulls look public. The line is moving way in the direction of the Nets. I don't get it at all because the Nets just beat L.A., huge win, and then they played Cleveland almost to the wire. 2 huge wins, and now they're turning around and playing Chicago. And I believe they have Boston up next, which is another huge game. So I don't understand it at all. I think this is a spot where they got to overlook the Bulls. Doesn't make any sense to me. The Bulls are on a nice run right now. I don't think it's really going to be a letdown spot for them. Nice win over Indiana, but they got some momentum right now. I think the spot is way worse for Brooklyn. So I don't understand that at all. And that's pretty much it, man. I mean, Sacramento, Golden State, kind of a big game, I guess. Sacramento coming off that horrendous loss to the New York Knicks, getting absolutely annihilated in the game. Golden State staying out on the West Coast here, staying out at home, just kind of rolling right now. Don't really want to step in front of that train, but I'd probably take the points if you force me to lean. Warriors up from 7 to 7 with juice, 76% of tickets, only 71% of the cash. So they're public with less of the cash on them. That's going to do it for me. Tower Gang Toad on Twitter, patreon.com/Tower Gang. And you get bonus content, most offensive podcast out there. Check it out. Andrew, good morning to you as well. Thank you, sir. I'm better than Tim Pool. Thank you. Plays one more time. College, Ohio, minus 2.5. Indiana, plus 2. Iowa State, minus 3. Texas, plus 6. Hockey, St. Louis, minus 115 or whatever. And Chicago Bulls and basketball, NBA, minus 2.5. That's going to do it. Peace out, everybody.